U.S. Arab Radio Network presents Season 3 of the Ray Hanania Radio Show, sponsored by Arab News, the leading English language newspaper in the Middle East. Each Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, veteran journalist Ray Hanania explores issues facing Arab Americans on WNZK AM 690 radio in Detroit and on WDMV AM 700 radio in Washington, D.C. And now, your host, Ray Hanania. Watch the show live on Arab News Facebook page.
And welcome to the Ray Hanania Radio Show. I am Ray Hanania. It is Wednesday, September 6th, 2023, and this is Season 3, Episode 19. We're brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News, the voice of a changing region. Arab News is at arabnews.com. Our radio show focuses on Arab American community issues and also on Middle East coverage from a U.S. perspective. We have two great guests today, Rania Succar, Syrian-American CEO of Intuit MailChimp and co-founder of Succar, who's being awarded the Outstanding Arab American Philanthropist of the Year award at the Center for Arab American Philanthropy Threads of Giving Gala at the Guglielmo Winery on September 22nd. She will talk about the growing involvement of Arab American women in addressing Middle East-related issues, her co-founding of Succar, and her work to help Syrian youth. Our second guest is Joseph Tamraz. He's president of the Assyrian American Civic Club of Chicago, who will discuss the large Assyrian community in the United States, a Christian non-Arab community that is often identified by others as Arab because of their sharing of Arab culture and language. One of the issues he's going to talk about are the challenges Assyrians face and the issue of MENA, Middle East and North Africa category that's being placed or proposed for the U.S. Census. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we can speak with our guests, Intuit MailChimp CEO Rania Succar and Joseph Tamraz, president of the Assyrian American Civic Club of Chicago. We'll be right back right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you. Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bottom, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
Kashat's Mediterranean Market in Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552, and the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
Right now, I'd like to introduce the co-founder of Succar, a U.S. not-profit that provides educational and professional development opportunities for Syrian youth and refugees around the globe. Rania Succar She's going to be honored with the Outstanding American Philanthropist Award on September 22nd. Rania Succar is also the CEO of Intuit MailChimp. You know, I'm a big MailChimp user, and US Arab Radio Network is a big MailChimp user. And we have also used Intuit's products too. But before we get into all that, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, you're kind of a leading entrepreneur in terms of, bringing businesses together, getting them focused and achieving things. How does somebody get to that point? Tell us about your background first.
Sure. Well, I like to talk about my background in three parts, the three parts that take up the majority of my life. And that starts with my family. So I'm married to my husband, Kurosh, and we live in the Bay Area. And we have two young children, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And they are all consuming in the most beautiful way possible. Selma is very enthusiastic about the world and can't wait to get up in the morning and tackle new challenges. And Dara, our 3-year-old boy, is just obsessed with all transportation vehicles and is a handful, but a wonderful handful. So that's a huge part of my life. The second big part of my life is the work I do with Succar. So as we'll talk about, my family is originally from Syria. My parents got married and moved over to the US, and I was born in the US, but stayed very connected to Syria and people in Syria. And I became very passionate as a result of that connection to help close the opportunity gap and help young people in Syria have hope, the type of hope that we had growing up here in the US. And so several friends and I co-founded an organization back in 2011 called Succar, which means bridges in Arabic. And we are focused on closing that opportunity gap for Syrian youth, basically educating Syrian youth and focusing on a brighter tomorrow. And we've educated more than 10,000 young people through that journey. So that's another huge part of my life that takes up a lot of focus and a lot of time, but gives me tremendous amount of meaning and purpose. And then the third part of my life, and my husband jokes that I make it the third part because it takes up a lot of my life, is my professional work. So I have been very involved in the technology sector through the course of my career, spending time most recently with Intuit. As you said, the company creates so many products that help both consumers as well as small businesses. And our mission is to power prosperity around the world for both consumers and small businesses. And so I've had many very exciting roles here at Intuit in the last 7 years, working on both helping small businesses close their cash flow gap with all of our products in QuickBooks focused on helping them get paid faster or access capital. And most recently, in the last year, I've had the privilege to lead MailChimp, an extraordinary business that Intuit acquired a little over a year and a half ago. And that is all about helping small businesses grow and find new customers and engage their existing customers in very impactful ways. So it's been a wonderful journey. Before Intuit, I spent time at Google, I spent time at McKinsey, and I spent time at Merrill Lynch. But I've been very fortunate to work at leading companies towards very important missions and impact over time.
That's a phenomenal story. And I love the fact that it's founded in family. Tell us a little bit just about your heritage and your family, where they came from, how they got here to the United States. And I'm really interested in how a Arab American woman wasn't pushed to be a doctor or a engineer, but instead got into computers. Give us a little thumbnail on the ancestry of your family.
Well, first of all, I love that. I thought the direction you were going to go in was an Arab American woman wasn't pushed to not be so career oriented, but you led with two wonderful careers, which is medicine and engineering.
Absolutely.
And I must say, I think the Arab American community invests so heavily in women and girls and education. And so I love that you led with that question. My parents immigrated from Syria in the early 70s. And my dad is a doctor. And so he certainly had that path. My mom studied computer science. But we grew up really appreciating the values that both parts of our culture provided. We used to spend every summer in Damascus, as many families with Arab American heritage did, spending time back home in the region. And those were absolutely pivotal moments for me growing up. I saw the beauty of the culture and came to realize it in a big way, and it became a huge part of my identity. The beauty of the history, the rich history of that part of the world. When we'd go to Palmyra and see parts of Damascus as the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. or we would experience the love of family. You know, there was never a moment where we'd be climbing up the stairs to our unit at the top of the building and doors wouldn't open up from relatives who would welcome us in for a spontaneous breakfast or lunch. I mean, there was never a moment where the family wasn't just overflowing wherever we were. So we got to experience that. But the most pivotal part of that experience was the relationships I formed with my cousins. And at very young ages, nothing separated us in this world. Everything we had, our dreams were the same, our energy was the same. By the time we hit our teenage years, my cousins, I started to notice that we diverged in quite a big way. I dreamt of going to Harvard and studying amazing things and all the things I would do with my career and the way I would change the world. And their dreams started getting smaller. They started getting married, the girls, at very young ages, because there was no other goal in life than to get married. Right. The economy was prohibitive in terms of what they could do. And earlier, the boys were going to college. And then by the time the second and third son would get to college age, they stopped because there was no point. They were all ending up in their dad's business, splitting a business, the family business, into four so that each son could maintain their household. And that stayed with me. And I became very focused on the power of a strong economy and what it could do for young people. And that became a pivotal starting point for founding Succar later. But back to your original question, you know, we also experienced the amazing things in the US and what it had to offer, the education system, the extracurricular system. And our parents pushed us to achieve in amazing ways, to always reach our full potential. And that set us up to just do very important work, you know, me and my siblings as we grew up. So
tell us a little bit. Go ahead.
I also will say the other part of me growing up is watching the active role my parents played in the community. And that also shaped me in a huge way. Both of my parents were very involved in establishing the Arab American Medical Association. They were part of the early days of establishing it and founding it. So I watched my dad chair the annual conferences and bring the community together, or establish the foundation that then funded so much medical equipment in the region. And I watched my mom not only work in that organization, but to create scholarship funds at local universities to support Arab American students, or even the work they did with their hospital to help the hospital develop and grow as an institution. And that was very important for me as well, as I had that example in my life of you don't only work hard professionally, but you are passionate about creating opportunity for the community, and you dream big, and then you roll up your sleeves and you play an active leadership role. And I learned that from my parents as well.
I may have met your father about 2 decades ago. I was doing stand-up comedy and I performed for the Arab American Medical Association 2 different times. So I had a lot of fun talking about Arab American heritage. Tell us a little bit now about Succar. What moved you to co-found it? And tell us a little bit about it. I know I described it as a not-for-profit, and, you know, they create educational and professional opportunities for Syrian youth and refugees. That in today's world, that has to be really tough, because a number of weeks back, I spoke with Zahar Sahlul from Med Global, and he said the largest number of refugees in the world are Syrians, displaced and people and refugee people. And that has to be a huge burden. Tell us a little bit about that and a look at the situation for Syrian refugees and displaced people.
Well, I will start by saying Succar is the most beautiful story of hope. So when you think of Syria these days, it is a very sad and devastating and debilitating situation. You almost look at it and say, what can be done? It is there are so many forces that are working against us and the people of Syria. But when you think about Succar, it is a very different feeling and story of impact. We feel and experience hope every single day in the work we do with Succar. So unlike those other stories that are more draining from an energy perspective, Succar is very different. And it's because the whole mission of the organization is to invest in Syria's youth for a brighter tomorrow. We believe that if we are working to prevent a lost generation for the country. And we believe this is one of the most important areas we can all invest in, is giving children the opportunity to learn to read and write so they can have the gift of literacy, because life without that is very difficult. or young people that are college age, the opportunity to go to university. And we invest in students who have the potential to be change agents, who will, when you invest in one of them, they'll have multiplicative impact for those around them, and a multiplier effect. And so we look for individuals like that. So that's what we do. As I said, we've educated 10,000 young people since we started the organization. It's closer to 15,000 now.
Wow.
And that is a remarkable number if you think about it. And I think that is barely scratching the surface of the impact we've had, because of the fact that because there are so many scholarships we've made available to young people, so many others have chosen to continue their high school and primary education because they believe there's an end in sight. And of those, thousands that we've educated from a university perspective, they're off changing the lives of thousands and tens of thousands of others. So 15,000 is the direct impact. The indirect impact is dramatically greater. And this was all started in 2011 by a group of young professionals. We were in our, 20s and 30s at the time. And we came from all parts of Syria. We'd grown up in various we'd grown up around the world of Syrian descent, similar to me, representing all religions, ethnicities, all different perspectives about the political situation in Syria, different views, but it didn't matter. We were unified by our focus on education and investing in youth. And we did this. We've deployed over $20 million and educated all these young people. And we've established Succar in a very different way than a traditional nonprofit, bringing private sector approaches to running a nonprofit organization in terms of marketing and branding and community building, and how we raise funding and how we build programs in a way that's constantly thinking about 10xing our impact every year by getting innovative approaches to the programs we lead. So that's the story of Succar and what we do. And just to be clear, the programs we run, we have a refugee education program focused on driving literacy among young people that's housed in Lebanon, focusing on that community. But we have programs in Jordan and Turkey as well. We run a university and high school scholarship program where we've provided close to 1,000 scholarships to students in over 40 countries with institutions around the world. And we run a career development and entrepreneurship program, helping young people actually get the skills that they need to become employed or to find work through the entrepreneurship ventures that they create. So that's the organization. And the way it came to be founded was through all the life experiences I'd had. As I mentioned, it came from this passion I developed visiting Syria in the summer to close the opportunity gap with Syrian youth. It came from the insight I experienced in those summers about the incredible asset that Syria had, like many Arab countries, of their expatriate population abroad, and how the expatriate population could play a transformational role for the people inside the country. And that's what we did with Succar. And then it came from watching my parents and the role they had in the community and the impact they had. And it came from my experience at Harvard, where we got together all the alumni of the Society of Arab Students on campus and formed the Harvard Arab Alumni Association and had significant impact. So those were some of the things that went into founding Succar.
Yeah, and I've been to the Harvard Arab American Student Association events. They're phenomenal. And I think that's a great organization. What stories stick to you? A profile, a story that shows you the impact of the dreams, realized by these young people, these Syrian youth, and have a multiplier effect to their community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
There are so many stories here, so many stories.
Is there one that really moves you, or that when you think about it, I know there are things in life that become energy for you to want to do more, because everything falls into place. Perfect.
There are so many stories. I can talk about one of the first cohorts of students that we brought to the United States through our scholarship program. And that was we had a program with the Illinois Institute of Technology. It was one of our first programs. And we were committed to bringing something like 25 to 50 students from Syria to that program. And they came on campus. We worked so hard to get them on campus. The university was an amazing partner there. And they came on campus. And of course, their first semester was a struggle. They struggled to get used to the academics and just the entire atmosphere and environment. But once they were comfortable, they took the university campus by storm. And the deans of the campus and colleges would call us and say, "We've never seen anything like this. These students from Syria are the most ambitious, accomplished we've ever seen." And there were previous groups from different countries that always amazed us in their achievement. And this cohort has far surpassed what those have done. And I realized when you bring in young people who who are fighting for everything, who've experienced complete loss, who've experienced, been at the brink of death, have seen so many loved ones die, who are fighting so hard for the future of their country. They're going to come in with unrivaled tenacity to achieve and unrivaled passion to give back. And that's what we saw in this cohort. They not only did they achieve academic outcomes beyond anything the university had ever seen, they got admitted to the top companies. They got accepted to the top companies that had never happened before from the Illinois Institute of Technology, or just set new records in terms of the number of students who got into Goldman Sachs or the number of students who got into Google. And so it was unbelievably inspiring. And so number one, that in itself was a huge outcome, because in those roles, they were able to learn so much, such diverse backgrounds, and also change the reputation associated with a country like Syria. We talked about some of that stigma of being Arab American, but when you get these top achievers, they totally change the way people perceive the country, which was impactful in itself. But the beauty of what they went on to then do is form their own nonprofit organizations to give back at scale. They'd watched what Jussur had done, they'd learned, and then as just one example, and there's so many of these, they went on to found an organization called the Syrian Youth Empowerment Organization that went on to tutor and mentor hundreds of high school students in the region, and they've now gotten in several, I'd say, in the dozens, into Ivy League universities and gotten them full scholarships to study. So talk about a multiplier effect. That is just one example of where we've educated a small number of individuals who've then gone on to make tremendous change at scale, driving reputational change for Syria, getting the skills that they'll need in the future to go off and create all sorts of organizations and institutional support for the country, but already paying that off with the nonprofit organization they've created. So that is just one of many organizations that makes me so proud. I'll give you one more, just to show you a different sector. One of our young women went on to work at, I believe it's the IMF, but one of the global organizations focused on global economic attainment. And she was working on research associated with over-sanctioning. When you take the sanctioning laws and you overimpose them. And as we all know from the Arab world, those sanctions can be debilitating and devastating to individuals and civilians. And for her to do that research to help companies and institutions improve the way in which they're applying the sanctions, that can have profound impact on the region. And so just one example of a different sector where I saw us fill in important research areas and important areas of focus that will help the region over time.
What's interesting about this is that you're not a traditional Arab woman. And your mother, though, was in computer science, I think you said. So that's a little non-traditional to begin with. So it had an impact on you. And you said something about when you were helping Syrian youth, that you brought in all these assets that you picked up being really in the corporate world in the United States, in the West, marketing, understanding how to structure things, phenomenal education, obviously, too. But sometimes you can have a great education, never be able to put those pieces together. Can you reflect on that a little bit? I mean, you brought so much to the table that made Jussur successful to do what it did. 15,000 students is huge.
Well, I'd love to say first, I do think I'm a very traditional Arab American woman. I think so much of what my upbringing represents is consistent with the extraordinary attributes that Arab Americans bring and have experienced. One story that's very interesting I will share before I answer your question about how we brought so much creative energy to Jussur and so much innovation. But one story I will share about Arab American values and Arab values is when I got ready to go to college, I wanted, my dad said to me, you can go, unless you get into Harvard, you need to stay in Michigan. We grew up in Michigan. And that was partially, given the concept of the idea of it being very hard to send a daughter away, so far away to college when we, family was so close and you just held your daughters close as part of the Arab world. So that was a hard challenge. And so I said, okay, Dad, I'm up for the challenge. And I got into Harvard. And then my mom and dad worried so much about would my grandfather, who was in Damascus, let me go, because it was shocking to have an Arabic girl travel that far away from her family to university. And so my mom was very worried about it. And finally, they told my grandfather I'd been accepted to Harvard. And his reaction was 100% opposite than what they anticipated. Instead of saying no, he celebrated my admission, and he bought a gold medal for me that had Allahumma Rabbi zidni ilman on it, which is a verse from the Quran talking about, may God increase my knowledge and my learning. And that was the most beautiful thing. It highlights the centrality of education and achievement that is very present in Arab values. So I'll just share that. He, just like many families, there was always an emphasis on education. And so my mom was always put in the best schools and pushed to achieve all that she could. And when she came here, it was very natural for her to get into the University of Michigan and study computer science. So just sharing that.
Before we get into the second part of that question, talk a little bit about a traditional Arab woman. Has it been redefined? I mean, we are seeing Arab women doing so much more. I mean, I'm much older, obviously. So when I grew up, you're absolutely right. They wanted my sister to get married. They wanted my brother and I to get these big careers. I don't know if that just was the easy route to avoid conflict or problems. I'm not exactly sure. But everybody ended up changing and doing well. Have we changed the image of the definition of a traditional Arab woman? Is it changed today, do you think?
Possibly. I think there's, many different facets of the culture, just like those that exist here. And so you have different families and different backgrounds, and they'll emphasize different things. I will say, even when I went to Harvard back in the late 90s, I graduated in 2001, I met some formidable women from the Arab world, and they could take on anyone. And that was, decades ago, women from the Gulf. And so I would say that even many years ago, there's always been this, multifaceted approach to Arab women and their strength and what they offer. But so I would argue that even in the past, we've had the strength in strong pockets in the region, and possibly it's continuing as well. So.
That's amazing. First of all, it's always great. Listen, I feel great to see women being treated equally and to excel beyond men in many cases. In other words, now it's based on talent, not on your gender. That's right. Phenomenal to see that. And I think that is a big change that we're seeing slowly spreading across the Arab world. Tell us a little bit about the assets. Now, you're not just an Arab American. You're not just somebody that has done so much in terms of humanitarian relief for Syrians or an Arab youth. You're at the top of the, computer science, computer technology industry. You were at Intuit, which is a phenomenally wide-based, successful corporation. You worked with them, and then you took over MailChimp. You kind of merged, and I don't mean to mischaracterize, what's happening, but I'm just trying to summarize it. And those are two big influencers in our society today. And to have a woman driving it, for a lot of Arabs, still the old-fashioned Arabs, they'd say, wow, that's huge. And tell us about how difficult that was. Is it difficult to kind of have the Arab background and then yet transition into an American or Western profile where you're actually running these big corporations?
No, I grew up, the Arab component of my background only provides a sense of identity and strength and personality, but no, it's never been a deficit at all or held me back. Today in the corporate world, there's an increased movement towards diversity, equity and inclusion, and representation. And so earlier on in my career, there certainly was a stigma associated with being of Arab American descent. And I certainly held it back. It wasn't something that I promoted. I, remember applying for my first job and scrubbing every reference to Arab American off of my resume, right. Which was interesting because a lot of the work I had done in college was being part of that community and organizing things. But I chose to say, I want people to understand me and recognize my value and the impact I'm having without any preconceived notions of who I was or what my background was. So that was very early in my career. I will say the environment today is quite different. it is celebrated to have strong identity and a diverse identity and background and a strength, because we are in the corporate sector, especially, I would say it's even stronger in the tech community, but we are, and Intuit is certainly a champion of this. We are trying to have a very broad workforce that comes in with all forms of representation and diverse backgrounds. And we celebrate those things because it brings in diversity of thought and experience that makes us stronger. And so today it is celebrated as opposed to being something that is more negative. So I certainly speak very openly about my background and all of that to help others speak openly about their background and their identity, and to help promote others wanting to join and see themselves in leadership. So anyway, I'll share that. But frankly, so much of what I've attained has been very much because of the mindset of constantly willing to challenge myself and take on a massive challenge that I don't necessarily know how I'm going to achieve as I get into it, and feeling confident that I will find a way, that I will continue to iterate on my leadership approach and just learn from different people and constantly look for advice and try different things in order to be successful in the end. And I would say that's what's been at the core of me continuing to take on bigger challenges, is just that mindset of being comfortable, being constantly uncomfortable with the scale of the challenge and the opportunity ahead of me.
And I know that it's always a challenge for Arab Americans. Me as a journalist for 45 years, always having to explain to people what an Arab American is and trying to educate Americans. But I realize, and I think that you did too, that you have to tell them who you are, because it changes their incorrect perceptions. It shows you as being, wow, this person has been very successful. Oh, and they're Arab American. They're from Syria. To me, it's not an easy thing to do. Wasn't that a little difficult to try to merge that into your career? It takes a while. It can't happen quickly, can it?
That's right. It does. I would say that I tried first slow, in many ways, COVID changed a lot of how we showed up in the professional environment as leaders. It pushed for more vulnerability and being more open. And that certainly had to do with our identity and background, possibly, but certainly with, some of the challenges we each faced as leaders and how we were dealing with the challenges associated with COVID. And our employees needed to hear more of that to help them deal with their challenges and struggles. And it just created a greater opportunity to bring your whole self to work, to have those open conversations about who you were and your identity and all of those things. So I found, I experimented with some of those things early on and recognized the impact it had on our employees and the feedback I would get. And I was recognizing that made me a more successful leader because people identified with me and my stories and my background. And that helped them be more successful. And we were able to recruit more talent of different backgrounds to our organization. So yes, you're right. These things are challenging and you need to experiment with it to do more of it. But for me, it's been an asset, not a hindrance, ultimately.
So it is so inspirational to listen to an Arab woman. In a way, it's kind of sexist or gender biased, but to see you actually in front there doing all these things makes me feel like you actually can do more good. It's very inspirational. You're bringing change to our community. They're seeing us in a different light because of the way that you do things. Are there any final thoughts? I know we've talked about a lot of things. I hope we didn't miss anything, but is there anything that you want to mention or tell the audience about, how they should move forward, deal with challenges of being Arab American? Maybe they're an Arab American woman out there, a young lady that is, caught between the traditional and non-traditional aspects of our culture. What would you like to say, or is anything you'd like to talk about beyond that?
Well, I'd love to close with two thoughts. First, I want to recognize and celebrate the extraordinary work of the Center for Arab American Philanthropy, which is the organization that is recognizing me and the work of Succar at their annual gala in September. Another example of an extraordinary organization that was established and has been led primarily by Arab American women. So another example of very strong and high impact women in the Arab world, all with the purpose of helping bring the Arab American community together in their philanthropy efforts. So not only increasing philanthropy, but when there is philanthropy, joining forces so that when a check goes out to a large organization with a donation, it's coming from the Center for Arab American Philanthropy, also oriented at changing the association with the context of Arab Americans. So I'm extremely proud and inspired by the work that organization has done. In closing, what I would say to anyone listening is the most amazing thing I've learned through my work with Succar is, which we had extraordinarily high expectations for, and I believe we've surpassed those extraordinarily high expectations with the impact we've had. But the thing I've learned is sometimes we look at deeply entrenched challenges in this world, and it can be very depressing. And as I said earlier, debilitating. What can I even do with a situation as dark as what Syria is facing today? And what I've learned is when we come together, even as individuals, to create organizations or to create a movement, we can actually have pretty profound impact on these challenges. And so I would just encourage people to not look at these daunting challenges and step back, but rather to lean in, to form a team with diverse opinions and perspectives and diverse backgrounds that you can all challenge each other and build on each other, bring innovation from different sectors of the world and go at it. Because what I've experienced from Succar, as I said, is we can have profound impact on even the most entrenched problems in our society today.
We've really been privileged today to be talking with Rania Succar, the Syrian American CEO of Intuit, MailChimp, co-founder of Succar. She's going to be receiving the Outstanding Arab American Philanthropist of the Year Award at the Center for American Philanthropy, Threads of Giving Gala at Guglielmo Winery on September 22nd, 2023. Rania, it just really, it's moving to see somebody like you breaking stereotypes, doing positive things, and doing things that nobody can say they don't like. You're doing great things, and I just want to thank you for coming on the radio show.
Thanks for having me, Ray. Thanks for the great discussion.
You're welcome. Yeah.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you.
Ziyad brand, quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
هل تلقى أطفالكم أحدث نسخة من لقاح كوفيد-19؟ لقد تم لغاية اليوم تطعيم أكثر من 5.5 مليار شخص بلقاح كوفيد-19، وأثبتت النتائج أن اللقاحات كانت فعالة، حيث قام الخبراء حول العالم بإجراء الاختبارات اللازمة ليكون اللقاح آمناً وفعالاً. اللقاح لا يحميكم أنتم وعائلتكم فقط، بل يحمي المجتمع كله. قوموا بواجبكم من خلال التحدث إلى مقدمي الخدمات الصحية أو زيارة michigan.gov/kids-covid-vaccine. رسالة من وزارة الصحة والخدمات الإنسانية.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
And welcome back, everybody. Now I'd like to talk to Joseph Tamraz. He is president of the Assyrian American Civic Club of Chicago. And we're going to talk a little bit about who are the Assyrians, the Assyrian community in the United States, a little bit about the census. Does MENA include everybody from the Middle East? And is that a good way to be identified? If you're a Chaldean or Assyrian, it doesn't tell you how many Assyrians or Chaldeans there are out there. So we're going to talk with Joe about some of these issues. Joe, Tamraz, thank you so much for joining the program. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for invitation, and I'm glad to be here with you and your listener.
Yeah, now, of course, I've followed the Assyrian community for many, many years. As I spoke with you earlier. There was Klamis Ganji when he had the Assyrian newspaper going back, I think, in the 70s when I first met him. But the Assyrian community is a big, influential community in Chicago. Tell us a little bit of how big is that Assyrian community in Chicagoland and in the United States? Are there other Assyrian communities in the country?
Oh yeah, we have basically all over the United States, especially in certain states. And definitely here in the state of Illinois at Chicago, because this was one of the first places that people from Iran, Iraq, and Syria, and all over, they came to the United States because of sea, because they were coming through ocean and things like that in the past. And they came here and start living and growing. So we had the big community here. We had a lot of even old churches in Chicago area, and our population started growing, especially after war in Iraq, Iran, and in Syria, Lebanon, and all the stuff was going on in the Middle East. So a lot of people from those countries, they left and they came to the United States. So now we have a really large community in the Chicagoland. And in the Chicago itself, I will say we have over 100 to maybe 150,000 people live. And we have, a lot of people that are in the suburbs, they used to live in Chicagoland, but they are now moving to suburbs of the Chicago, but close, not too far. And even some of them there are, because of their work, their studies and things like that, the lifestyle has changed these days.
But it's a big community though of Assyrians.
We are a big community, so we still hoping, getting together and have some events, in church and on festivals and some parties, because even from those days that you mentioned in the 70s and even before that, we used to have a lot of events that used to getting us together. As soon as they like the music, we like to dance. So that's one of the things that is keeping us close to each other. And with the parties, with the weddings and things like that.
Well, I know that I've known many Assyrians over the years, and I know it's always been a big community. But I also know that Assyrians are not Arab. Even though they're from the Middle East region, in this category of MENA, Middle East and North Africa. But technically, I mean, culturally, you may share the Arabic language, the food, music, but you also have your own identity too. Tell us a little bit about Assyrians. Where are they from?
Definitely, yeah. We are from Middle Eastern countries, but Assyria used to be a huge empire. They used to be, back of the days, like all Iraq, Iran, Syria, Lebanon, Turkey, and all that region. They used to be Assyria. Used to call it Assyria. We were a big empire. We have over 6,000 years. Even our calendar is 6,754. This year, but we are a big community, big empire. So we were separate. We're not Arab or the other nationality over there. So we were our own nationality. And even these days, every part of like Iraq, if you basically you'll find a lot of our treasures buried in land. So you can find them. So we are not Arab, we are Assyrian. So we are completely different. And we're not sure, actually Arab language is based on our language. It's not our language based on them. Our language is a lot older than Arab or Persia, and all those. They took our language. So there is a lot of similarity. Especially even with the Hebrew too. There is a lot of similarity, but they took from us because our language was a lot more, older and richer with all grammars, all history behind it. So,
and so they come from the Middle East, what is today the Middle East. I mean, it's evolved, but it also many of them are from the Iran, the Persian Empire, from area. Are they from Iraq also?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because there are Chaldeans in Iraq too. There's a group called Chaldeans. Are those the same as Assyrians or a different ethnic group?
Well, no. Actually, there are Assyrian too, but they belong to Church of Catholic Church, so they try to separate themselves. That's a different story. So we don't want to get into that. That's internal problem that we have.
The Middle East is always like that. So there are always these little stories. So the Chaldeans from the Assyrians look at the Chaldeans and say they're basically from your community, but they've gone off into a different religious arm in the Catholic community. What's the religion of Assyrians?
Well, Assyrians, they are all Christians. Because Jesus spoke our language, Aramaic. We are basically, I tell a lot of people, we are on the first page of Bible if you can find us. So we are Christian, and but we get a lot of domination, things like that. So it's depend because we moved to we lived in a lot of different countries, so things has changed. So we have basically majority of the Assyrians belong to Church of the East, but again they have the two parts. Old calendar and a new calendar, and also we have Catholic, we have Presbyterian, we have Evangelical, we have all denomination, but all of them that are Christian. So
and that's the common denominator in these days, correct?
Yeah.
And the fact that do Assyrians get upset when they say they're from the Middle East? That's okay, but I know some Assyrians get upset when they say they look at you. There are a lot of Americans who can't tell the difference between you and me, and they think you're Arab because they don't know better. But correct. Assyrians are definitely not Arab, correct? Culturally.
Correct. Completely different. We are not Arab, we're not Persian, we're not that. With those countries we came from, so basically you can say like your second nationality because, for instance, we are here American, okay, right. But we are Syrian, we are American as well, and so in those countries we used to live, so we were Assyrian, Iranian, Assyrian, Iraqi, Assyrian, Syrian, from all those countries that we were belong to. But right now we are Assyrians, we live, all those. So basically, yes, a lot of people they confused. So we try to correct them, educate them. So like, we were in a civic club, we were at the Mount Prospect Cultural Festival for first year. We attended this year. So a lot of people, they asked the questions. So we were trying to explain it to them. We had variety of our custom, artifacts. So we showed them. We try to explain it to them. Also, we participate at Skokie Festival of Culture. We try to explain it to them, and that's why we do a lot of events that we have. Like those festival or like parade. For instance, you see that float in back of
in your picture, your image.
My picture, yeah. That's one of our float that we participate in the parades. We participate in St. Patrick's Parade, 4th of July parades, Columbus Parade, Thanksgiving Parade, and so many other that we're trying to do. We try to explain it to other communities, who we are and what we are, because we know about each other, we know about ours, even participate in our events. I'm not saying that, we participate at, we have a Syrian New Year, we call it Khabnisan, beginning of the start of the spring. I think, that a picture is from that, because it's right behind it is a Warren Park, which basically we used to do it on Western Avenue by Warren Park. Yeah. So it's, that's what we try to do. We try to educate the other communities about ourselves.
Now, obviously, we don't have exact numbers, and I know that the Arab community has been pushing to be identified in the census.
Yes.
They want to be identified. How many Arabs are there in the United States? How many Arabs are there in Chicago, in Illinois? And they can't seem to be identified because the government won't recognize us on the census. Is that the same problem with the Assyrians? It must be even more complicated for you, because when they look at you and me, they see Arab. But in fact, the Assyrians are a different culture in the Middle East. Does the identity of Middle East and North Africa, does that do you justice as an Assyrian, or would you rather be identified as Assyrian on the census?
We would love to be identified as Assyrian. We tried it so many times. This past census and also the one before that, to be recognized as a Syrian, have a space on the things as a Syrian. But unfortunately, it doesn't work. We will try to work with the government, explaining to them, work with them, and it's not working. And also, we don't want to have another categories now that would come up with that many things. That's another one. So I don't know how that's gonna work. But the saying, they have the category there, and then you're gonna have subcategory, which is gonna will explain the Assyrian, which I don't think it's gonna be that, because always the same. So like I said, in the past two census, we try to work with different groups, with different things, to identify ourselves. But unfortunately, at the end, basically we get screwed. We didn't get recognized. So
you're left out.
Yeah, we were left out. At the last one, we were telling the people, go to a certain path and write Assyrian and the things. But unfortunately,
so when they fill out the census, you're telling them go to that's one spot that says other, and you write Assyrian. I used to do that as an Arab.
Yeah.
And then I started protesting. I refused to do the census because they don't include me. Yeah. But this MENA category they passed in Illinois, they say that MENA, Middle East and North Africa, includes everybody and gives empowerment for Arabs. But I don't understand how that has any value when it doesn't tell us how many Chaldeans there are, how many Assyrians there are, how many Arabs, how many Persians, how many Kurds. The Middle East and North Africa is a big region. And I just don't see that identifying us in any way as who we are. It's like they've given us a big umbrella to say we're MENA. I'm not MENA. I'm Arab. I want to be called Arab. I don't want to be called MENA.
Yeah. And that's if you go that, and there are certain countries, they're not saying about anything else. They said about those countries. So again, we're not including in those. So they should have said, these countries and the people that live in that, like Assyrians and Chaldean, whatever, other nationalities that are. It's not just that, there are different nationalities live in those countries. They're not always be left out. So we want to be, all of us, we want to be kind of be counted as who we are, not as somebody else's.
So
because
you have
the
nothing.
Number. You want to have a bigger number, but we don't want it.
You want to know how many you actually are. Wouldn't it be nice if we knew how many Assyrians were in Illinois, the actual number, based on an official government census? Because that results in money, federal money, to the Assyrian community, the Chaldean community, which is small in Illinois, but huge in Michigan, and the Arab community. We don't even know how many Arabs there are that are living in Illinois. I think that some people want us to be confused, and they keep doing it because this MENA legislation doesn't even say the word Arab in it. So I don't know how MENA is any good to anybody. Any final thoughts, Joseph, about the Assyrian community in the U.S.?
Well, for Assyrian communities that are getting larger and stronger in the United States. We are, like you mentioned, we are in Illinois, we are in California, we are in Arizona, we are in Texas, we are in also like New York and Connecticut, Michigan. We have, we're not that big, but we are all over. So we want to be counted as who we are in census, and also we want to do whatever that other nationalities they're doing. We are American. We want to use the same freedoms that everybody has. We use that one, work, publicize our nationality, our heritage, our language, our music, everything. Thanks God, we are able to do that. But some of stuff, coming up, we're trying to knock us down, which is bad.
All right. I want to thank my guest, Joseph Tamraz. He's the president of the Assyrian American Civic Club of Chicago. Joseph, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you, and have a good time. And I'll say, to all your listeners, to listen to your programs and also to other programs, because you will learn about other communities.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you. At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain. With more than 30,000 successful in vitro fertilizations, IVF Michigan is now ranked as one of America's best fertility clinics according to Newsweek magazine. IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders in high-quality fertility care. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 9 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. A founding member, American board-certified Dr. Nicholas Shama, is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. He has performed over 20,000 successful IVF cases, and it's helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. When it's time to get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at one of America's best fertility clinics, call IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio toll-free at 855-952-9600. 855-952-9600.
Are your hands feeling numb? Do you feel pain opening up a jar, turning a key? Are you noticing that your elbow and your shoulder are becoming stiff? Or were you recently injured in your arm? Hello, I'm Dr. Albanjit Katranji. And at the Katranji Hand Center, which just recently opened down the street from the Somerset Mall, we can provide you with the latest in hand, wrist, elbow, and shoulder care. Visit us at www.katranjihandcenter.com to learn the latest techniques that we have to offer you, and I look forward to taking care of you.
Visit us in Troy at 1565 West Big Beaver Road, Building F, or call Katranji Hand Center for an appointment at 248-869-4263.
You've been listening to the Ray Hanania Radio Show, brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News, Season 3, Episode 19, September 6th, 2023. You can listen to this podcast and all of our past radio shows on podcast by visiting Arab News newspaper, the voice of a changing region, at arabnews.com. You should check out all of our podcasts by visiting arabnews.com. And you can get more information on me and my bio and my background as a journalist by visiting hanania.com. I look forward to you next week when we have more interviews and great guests here at the Ray Hanania Radio Show on the U.S. Arab Radio Network at arabradio.us, sponsored by Arab News, the voice of a changing region, at arabnews.com. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.